Moltíssimes gràcies, Guido, per aquesta inspiradora presentació. Em quedo sobretot amb el missatge de que l'espai tradicional i l'espai, el NewSpace, són no només compatibles, sinó que a més són necessaris, que tots poden aprendre els uns dels altres i que realment poden fer donar i brindar oportunitats a tot el sector. Després d'aquesta magnífica presentació, donem pas a una taula rodona. Com molt bé ha dit la Mònica, el sector espacial és un sector tractor, és un sector pioner en tecnologies i els que treballem en aquest sector ho sabem. En la següent taula rodona, diferents experts del sector debatran com transformar la ciència en productes i en serveis operatius. I com dèiem abans, que donin solucions reals a les necessitats dels usuaris. En Jordi Corbera, cap del Departament d'Observació Terrestre de l'Institut Cartogràfic i Geogràfic de Catalunya, moderarà aquesta taula amb la representació industrial i científica. Gràcies. Endavant.
Passareu la slide o no? Bé, doncs no. Hola, bon dia a tothom. El meu nom és Jordi Corbera, soc el cap de l'àrea d'observació de la Terra a l'Institut Cartogràfic i Geològic de Catalunya. És un plaer estar aquí i que m'hagueu convidat. Una mica el que volíem amb aquesta taula rodona era intentar completar tot el cicle de valor de l'observació de la Terra. I per tant hem convidat a experts des de la part del segment espai, és a dir, des del disseny de plataformes que orbitaran a l'espai i que estan orientades a servir les necessitats dels usuaris, com és en Roberto Fabrizi de Satlantis. Roberto. Després, aquestes dades s'han de transformar en un valor afegit, en productes i serveis, i per això tenim l'Alberto Garcia d'Isrsat. Molts d'aquestes plataformes o les plataformes han de portar unes càrregues útils, unes càrregues que detecten o sensen el territori i que, per tant, esdevenen el motiu principal de l'emissió, i en tema de sensòrica, de noves tecnologies i de com aprofitar les càrregues útils al seu disseny i requeriments, doncs tenim Estel Cardellach de l'Institut d'Estudis Espacials de Catalunya. Estel. I us preguntareu a la darrera persona què fa, perquè ja hem cobert tot el cicle de valor, ja tenim això a l'espai, ja tenim sensors, ja tenim dades i gent que les explota i genera serveis. Doncs al final tenim una activitat absolutament transversal, crítica i necessària i que no sé si sempre és realment ben entesa per als decisors, i que és la recerca. I en aquest cas tenim com a recerca i venint de l'Institut de Ciències del Mar, ho diré bé perquè sempre em confonc amb els noms, la Carolina Gabarró. Existeix un agreement entre els tertulians que passarem a l'anglès, per entendre'ns tots millors. So then I propose this sort of three questions, okay? Just the first one is, it's just because in my humble opinion, exists some misunderstanding about how to transform data into information and knowledge. So many people say, okay, we have data, we have knowledge, but how to move to data, to information, and finally to provide some tools just to take decisions and so on, okay? The second one is it's about or feeling about if really new space is a disruptive paradigm to be operational. Maybe the last speaker asked us to point out or just to make some remarks about that. Sometimes I think that I belong to the old space, more than the new space. So new space is really a disruptive paradigm. And at the end, I'm very worried about the added value of Earth observation. So how to generate economy, and in particular, how to generate benefits, both in terms of direct and indirect benefits, okay? So that's 3 questions. You answered what you want, so it's time for you just to start to know your remarks and comment about that. If you want, maybe Roberto, you can start with this transformation of data, and what's your opinion about that? So, Roberto?
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation, Jordi, and for the organization. It's a pleasure for me to be in this panel. So, and thanks also for the other panelists to switch in English, because I didn't speak, unfortunately, Catalan. We tried in Italian, but it was not allowed. And yeah, so we moved to English. So just to, I mean, we are, as Jordi say, at the beginning of the change. So we are, as a company, an upstream company. So what we are doing basically is to also serve the request that we have from our customer, to really teaming up with our customer or with our partners to customize the mission, to give them the best solution as possible in terms of data quality. So what is one of your remarks on your question? I think it's key, because if we want to have at the end of the chain with the downstream services really something useful for the final user, for the Copernicus service that we were discussing before, I think it's important to start from the quality of the data to really customize the mission around that needs in terms of spectral band, resolution, and so on, to really to avoid to be only technology push, and to really listen what the customer needs, and to give them the best solution as possible.
So it's your time.
Yes, well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the focus of my research is the new techniques, especially reusing existing signals. And in this sense, it's very important to get a clear picture of the gaps in knowledge and how we can fill these gaps in knowledge. And that means data, which is what we develop. But at the moment, it's obvious that we live in the era of data. We could almost call it data scene, Anthropocene, so data scene. This era of data, it's an ocean of data, it needs to be fished. And different sectors of the economy are sensitive to Earth environment. In fact, I would say almost all the sectors in the economy are sensitive to our environment. But each of these sectors has its particular needs in many different aspects, and it must be tailored from this data how to target each particular needs. I think many examples have been already given about these different sectors. And yeah, well, just examples. Sorry, I don't find it in front of my risk management, even insurance, agriculture. Agriculture links to food, coastal and offshore activities. At the end, everything maps into finance. So I think it's a good initiative that the Copernicus program included the development of the services. And the idea would be that in this new space economy, and as the new products come in, they could be absorbed somehow by these services to deliver to the final users.
So.
Yeah, that's a good link. What I wanted to mention here. So for me, let's say the movement now, it seems to be like from agency push or managing Copernicus program to a more national push. So there are national new space programs created now. What Guido mentioned about Italy, the Catalan one, Spanish one, France one. So there are more initiatives from the national point of view trying to answer national needs that might be maybe common, some of them. And then there are like quantity of missions being launched with different maybe instrumentation, so the quality might not be aligned between them. And then what Esther was saying about integrating all these single new data providers or missions into the current DIA systems, the Earth Data Cubes, all these big platforms that allow us or allow more the democratization of the data. So there is for me a work still to be done or to be thought. I think there are some European projects already to make some at least standards about this, but this is a good point to, let's say, to give to the new companies that are now launching new missions, that they should be a little bit making a point on integrating their data in the current DIA, Earth Data Cube, and all these platforms that the users that are using Copernicus data are now using.
Carolina?
Yes, I was going to comment something similar. For sure, having more satellites means having more satellites.
No.
Yeah,
no.
having more satellites mean more data for science, and we need a lot of data, and more satellites mean more coverage, which is great for us since we need to observe constantly certain regions that we are studying. In my case, it's the poles, but whatever. I was wondering, okay, nothing.
I think the battery maybe can...
Hello? I was wondering what is the data distribution policy of these new space satellites? Since this is, isn't it? Però m'has de passar el... Tens raó. D'acord.
Sorry, Carolina, if you want
where
to...
was I? About the data policy, since I see that mainly the new nanosatellites are led by companies, I was thinking on how is this data being distributed? Is it for free for science, for example? Also, another thing which bothers me is there any unique repository? Because for science, Copernicus has been great. It was really complicated. First, ESA was not offering data for free. NASA, yes, but now it's for free. But now we have all the data in one repository, which makes it much rich. We can use and combine data. So I was thinking also, how is this data policy going to what is the plan? I don't know, maybe it's clear, and I just don't know that information. And for sure, data can be translated to knowledge. If this translation to scientific community or to end users is clear and easy and transparent. I mean.
Okay, so then as a main summary of this question, the data quality is an absolutely paramount. So when my colleague said revisit and resolution, I don't know about the resolution, but data quality, it's paramount to transform data into information and knowledge, and some very interesting remarks about the compatibility, the integration, and the data policy of this space segment and so on. So the second question was dealing about if new space, it's just to create some, about if NewSpace is a new paradigm, or how in your current work and so on, the NewSpace can really improve or not your activity and so on. So, Alberto?
Yeah, so I was going to mention something that might go or move us a little bit to the 90s. So before all this Copernicus, like Sentinel missions, we had MBSat. So MBSat was a very big satellite, like a bus with all sorts of instruments. So most of them are now in single Sentinel mission. So we have the radar imaging, we have the radar altimeter, optical cameras, atmospheric instruments to measure CO2. So everything was there, and so for me, sort of a new space or a different way the missions or that particular mission was propagated on time was to split that big bus with all instruments on the Sentinel missions. And the reasons were more or less the same that are now pushing for NewSpace. So distributing the instruments on different missions to reduce the risks associated to a failure on launch or attacks or whatever. And also better managing of the data, better build similar instruments in order to make constellations of similar instruments. So on that particular moment, when we moved from MBSat to the Copernicus Sentinel program, I saw some similarities that now can be also taken on board. The only point that I'm not sure about is that let's say, movement was from the European Space Agency, and okay, there was an agreement for the different countries in order to, let's say, to get everything aligned for them, and where the countries were putting money and then on the different missions that they were interested. Now it seems that this transition from old space to new space, or the incorporation of new space, is not led by a European Space Agency anymore. There are, at least the way I saw it, there are like more national initiatives. And yeah, I see that there is okay.
No, but just...
Okay, so there is a lack of maybe of agreement in these, let's say, common objectives that the different countries should have in order to answer problems that they might have, and they are like building mini satellites to solve them, but they are maybe common to between other colleagues.
So, Estel and Roberto, how the NewSpace can improve your activities and the current actions and so on that you...
Well, in our case, NewSpace is paradise. It's paradise, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because we develop new techniques, and if you have to wait 10, 20 years to test your new techniques from space, it's obviously that you are not flexible, you cannot risk, while now it's possible to risk. But what I want to, I would like to introduce maybe something that has not been thought about. And it's an example of this disruptancy of the NewSpace. What happens with the NewSpace satellites that are not intended for Earth observation? What happens? Well, maybe we can use opportunistically the signals of these satellites too for Earth observation. One might ask, well, it was the same with all space, right? With the big satellites and communication satellites, navigation satellites, whatever. But in the past, or these big agencies or big companies dealing with non-Earth observation, they are focused on the non-Earth observation. And maybe they don't have the need to squeeze the signal to get commercial profits. While now, if you have a satellite that is not intended for Earth observation, but maybe the signals could be also solved or reprocessed for Earth observation, that even increase more the chances and the possibilities for Earth observation. Of course, with good intercalibration, with some standardization, with some good contracts with the agencies to guarantee continuity of the data and data access, clear data access policies, and so on.
Roberto?
Yeah, I will start from what Estel said about the paradigm of the new space. I think it's interesting what we are seeing also from our side, that there is more and more request of Earth observation instrument, basically because let's say some players on the full chain reduce drastically some cost associated, for example, to launcher with SpaceX. That, let's say, and also the major technology shift of that we have seen on these years with the digitalization, miniaturization of the satellites, so really help to reduce the cost and to have countries. It's true, as Albert said, that there is, let's say, more country or more small country that's thinking, or region thinking on their own satellites to have their own sovereignty, because it's so reduce the cost and too easy to have that access to that opportunity. I think it's an interesting paradigm at the moment, that it's useful also to democratize the access to data, to access to space. I want to also relate to the point of the constellation. I mean, the new space doesn't want to replace the old space. The idea is to really complement the old space, because we need more revisit time, we need more capacity, and there are different programs. For example, at the Copernicus level, there is now the Copernicus Contributed Mission for new space companies that is going on these days, to have new space player at the European level to be pre-operational and to start serving the 6 services of Copernicus that we have seen before. So that is something that I think is beneficial for all of us, to access to service, to access to data, and to have more information available.
So, Carolina, from the science point
Yeah,
of view.
it's difficult to add something. I mean, you have revisited everything. I would say that the new space for me has 2 clear objectives. Well, thinking on science. One is testing new technology. For having shorter design time, you can think in new technology to test and to see how it deals and improve and whatever, because everything has been like that. The first radar altimeter had nothing to do with the current radar altimeter. So we need to go advancing with new technology, but has also the advantage of being complementing the old satellite or all space satellites from Copernicus, which are the base for advancing on science. And of course, this data could also bring a lot of information for science.
Yeah, sure. So has a summary of this question, maybe some principal remarks in terms that maybe the new space has changed the question of risk according to the new space, that sort of missions and so on. So then it's available. It's more available in terms of testing new technologies and so on. But as Alberto and others say, that we need more consensus about the goals and the mission statement of the different new space initiative, just to build up a constellation of data capture and so on in a common or a consensus sense. As far as I know, for instance, Estel, in the new space Catalan strategy for the new satellites, we have saved some sort of weight, volume, and power for secondary payloads, in terms to try to test new technologies, and in particular to track the knowledge, the science, and so on that it's capitalized in Catalonia. So The third and the last question that during my more than 30 years of just focusing on space value and so on, from my side, I cannot explain, or I cannot answer in a proper way. It's what about the benefits of Earth observation from space? Okay, so in your expert opinion, which sort of benefits can be addressed with this new space initiative and so on, and in particular with the Earth observation one, are just direct benefits? What sort of indirect benefits and so on? So maybe Carolina, just you work in the Arctic side, so which are the benefits of your work?
For my work, mainly, as I said, it will be great, because we'll have more revisit time, more coverage of the images in the certain regions, so this for sure helps. For many issues, also for Catalan region, we could better monitor the quality of the water, of the Mediterranean water. For example, it would be great, and would be nice to see that we can monitor that. Many others, like for forests, that I think tomorrow is going to be taught. Someone will talk about that. For logistics of the country, for sure. Inside Catalonia will help a lot, but also will help on science of the general Earth observation, because we'll have more data, even though probably the data will have not the quality of the Copernicus satellites, because we know they are much more cheaper. But anyway, with a lot of data, we could advance, for sure.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm a little bit worried about that. Just to transform data into information and knowledge, you need models to simulate and to take this data and to fusion with other sort of information and so on. And our colleagues say the resolution it's one of the two keys. But I'm wondering about the. Sometimes we require more resolution. That I think that it's a special resolution, not radiometric or other sort of resolution. So we require more high resolution, but the models at the end are not ready to assume this so very high spatial resolution. So, for instance, I know in terms of thermal behavior of cities or urban climate and so on, the best models are running at 100 meters or 200 meters. So what's your opinion about that? How we need to transform and the sort of models and so on to generate value for ISARSAT?
Yeah, so from our point of view, I think it's quite a nice thing that there are more missions, more satellites, so we can, or a lot of people here can reuse things that they developed for a single mission. They can maybe adapt them on an easy way and then reuse them. So it's quite a nice thing to do some things that otherwise you cannot maybe do on this with this frequency. But I wanted to point out here something that is not a benefit, which is the space debris thing. So we have had some kind of no data on our satellites because they needed to do orbit maneuvers because of space debris. And so this is something that needs to be put over the table in terms of, okay, this overpopulation. I don't want to be radical here, but there are more satellites there, and they are not really quite having orbit control systems. So in a way, this produces sort of damage to the.
Yeah, but in terms of benefits, which sort of benefits generate your products and service? What's your opinion?
Yeah, so we are able to replicate projects that we did 2 years ago for new missions. So this is a nice thing to do. Otherwise, if we don't have this particular current creation of new missions, or if we need to wait 6 years to take something, maybe the people is not in the company anymore, and we need to do the things again from scratch. But being able to continue the work from one mission to the next one being designed, I think it's sort of a progressive activity instead of a start-stop.
Estel?
Well, yeah, understanding the added value of Earth observation, as I said before, almost all the activity, economic activity, social activity relates to the environment. So proper monitoring of the environment at the end reverts and benefits to the whole society. There are numbers, so some people make the computations. I even read, I don't know if it was a typo, but the Chinese weather system seems to have a cost-benefit ratio of 1 to 26. I don't know if that's correct, but I think it's a really big number. I would say the Copernicus program estimates something like 1 to 3, which is reasonable and very good. But in general, it's not only money at the end, right? And Earth observation, it's also useful for society in other ways. And if you can warn of some big risk, you will save life. Should we put some cost, monetary cost, to lives or not? So I think
that's my humble opinion. The same way, it's quite difficult to obtain some sort of metrics to evaluate the added value of Earth observation in terms of indirect benefits, social benefits, in terms of how these decision tools, thanks to Earth observation data, can save or can reduce the impact of. So, Roberto.
Yeah, I fully agree on what my colleagues say. Definitely, the Earth observation is becoming a commodity, and we expect, frankly, to have the Earth observation flow in the same path that the GPS followed in the 60, and to have, as we have with Google Maps in our mobile phone, and we expect really to have that access to data in the near future. We see, at least from our perspective, that more and more no-space companies are looking for solutions. For example, we are working with Enagas here in Spain, and we are working with them because they want to become a net zero company. So they need satellites to reduce the methane emission. So just an example to give you how also no space company are looking for solution to really increase their capability to reduce the risk that they may have on different verticals. So I think it's more and more there is a solution that we have to take into account for climate change, for example, that is, let's say, we see every day on the news the impact that we are having with climate change. But I think we need really to act with solutions, space solutions that can be useful to solve that problem.
So it's clear that, as a summary of this third question, that we need to move just to generate added value. We need to move to support Earth observation, to transform into information and acknowledge the space data just as a decision support tools, just to monitoring the Arctic, to monitor the urban or natural environment. So we are in our last 4 minutes. My last slide, can... Yeah, okay. So that's my last slide. Ja volia remarcar dos qüestions. Una és, tenim obert dins de la iniciativa NewSpace Catalunya, com també el director general Dani Marco ha mencionat, un challenge que liderem des de l'Institut Cartogràfic i Geològic de Catalunya en tres escenaris d'oportunitat perquè es presentin empreses que després seran, diguem-ne, tutoritzades i farem d'advisor des de l'ICGC amb 3 challenges. Un té a veure amb temes de catàstrofes i agricultura, especialment amb gelades, l'altre amb un monitoreig continu de la línia de costa i un tercer sobre el tema dels canvis de cobertes, de pastures, identificar pastures, etc. I bé, per finalitzar, us volia ensenyar aquestes 2 imatges. Una és de Pierre Mondrian, pintor, anys 20. Pierre Mondrian, a principis del segle passat, ja va intentar crear un llenguatge universal, quelcom que servís a qualsevol tipus de cultura, una visió sinòptica amb un llenguatge universal de l'activitat en una ciutat. Això és Broadway Boogie Boogie, és a dir, va censar l'activitat del territori. L'any 1920, els tècnics i científics hem arribat bastant més tard que els artistes. Aquesta és una imatge que estem estudiant el comportament tèrmic a la ciutat de Barcelona. És una imatge d'uns 3 metres de resolució de sensor hiperespectral per intentar censar i veure com es comporta el territori, tant les cobertes naturals com urbanes, perquè el repte que tenim és majúscul en temes de sostenibilitat i de l'impacte climàtic. Doncs res, estem atents, moltes gràcies i ens veiem ara al coffee break. Gràcies.
Hola! Hola a tothom! Comentar-vos només un parell de coses. La primera, en referència a la taula rodona, ens quedem amb el missatge de que tots els components de la cadena de valors són molt, molt significatius. Comentar-vos que arran del que deia l'Albert, hi ha projectes del NewSpace que estan lligats amb Space Debris i amb com aconseguir que es disminueixi aquest Space Debris en el nostre espai. I com comentava el Dani Marco, això és com un coet, a vegades hi ha imprevistos i hem de trobar solucions. Esperem que Artemis trobi la solució tan bé com l'hem trobat nosaltres amb els micròfons. I comentar-vos que a final de tot hi ha els traductors, traductor anglès-català, català-anglès. Per tant, si ho necessiteu tant per les conferències com per tenir algun intercanvi amb els nostres ponents internacionals, sentiu-vos lliures d'anar al final i agafar aquests traductors. Comentar-vos que ara hi haurà una pausa cafè i que ens reprendran les sessions a 3:15. El cafè és a baix al pati de la llotja. Moltíssimes gràcies i fins després.